I can't pass this up. So where you go after being an astronaut is you're on the stream. Come on, Tom. It's like a total layup.
ISS twice, the stream, it's all part of that, those kind of milestones, right?
I'm sure it'll be the top of his resume from this point.
Oh yeah, just move right to the top.
Hello and welcome to The Stream, an unscripted, unedited, free-flowing conversation featuring guests who reject the status quo with a bias for action in the world of water and beyond. My name is Tom Freyberg. I'm an environmental journalist and content creator specializing in water.
And I'm Will Sarni, a water strategy consultant, doing my part to solve wicked water problems.
And today we are thrilled to be joined not by one, but by two guests. We have John Etgen, who is the CEO of Project WET, as well as Ricky Arnold, who is a NASA astronaut and also the Director of STEM Engagement with the University of Maryland Center for Environmental Science. Gentlemen, welcome. Glad to see you got the note on the wardrobe. We are closing out the summer season and you're looking amazing. How you doing?
It's a wonderful dress code you guys have here. So thanks for having us.
Yeah, this works. Thanks for having us for sure.
Be thankful it was not the bow tie session because that we struggled through that one.
Yeah, we went formal for a few weeks, but we thought let's go back to the Hawaiian, right? Just for the guys. So I think there's an interesting story because normally we only have one guest. I think in the 30 episodes we've done, we've only had two guests. So I think to find out why the two of you for a start, how are you connected? Because we've got the boss of kind of a leading education campaigning company and then a NASA astronaut. So where did you link? And then why are you on here together? That would be a good bit of context, I think.
John, I'll let you get started, John, and then I'll editorialize as you go through the story.
You can correct all the misconceptions that I pushed forward. So Ricky and I actually share not only many adventures and misadventures together through our life. We've known each other 40 plus years. I'm not doing the math right now, but we also share a common kind of childhood connection to water. So we both grew up in the Chesapeake Bay watershed. We both grew up spin fishing for perch and catching soft crabs and eating crabs whenever we could, and really understanding that the land we stood on and everything we did flowed into that Chesapeake Bay. And, I think that it comes up quite a bit, even when we're traveling quite far abroad and together and otherwise. It's amazing how often we refer back to sort of those childhood memories and those childhood activities connected to that watershed.
I didn't realize you were that old, John. Thanks. You don't look it.
Wait a second.
No, thank you.
People are doing the math, right? You said we knew each other for 40 years. Let's start to try and work back.
Yeah, Maryland is a unique place. It's for a state. It's bounded on the southern to the south by a river. It's bounded to the east by the ocean, and it's bisected by the Chesapeake Bay, which I think is 18 trillion gallons of water. That keeps the state, requires a bridge to get from one side to the other.
Amazing. So clearly there was that kind of early connection to water then, but in terms of the pathways you took, but very much stayed connected. I mean, John, you've been not running Project WET for 27 years, but involved in Project WET for 27 years. Tell us a bit about kind of your involvement there. And then, I mean, Ricky, we've got to talk about space. It's not often we have an astronaut on the stream. I think you're the first. Hopefully not the last. But yeah, so John, let's hear from you in terms of your roots in the Chesapeake Bay and then coming on to Project WET.
Yeah, I'll be quick because I know you guys want to hear from the astronaut for sure. But
no, not at all.
Needless to say, my water journey has been long and circuitous from Maryland to Montana, where Project WET Foundation is based. And I've had the pleasure of working there for 27 years now. It's all about water education for us. So I came to this through a former park ranger interpreter, so leading the hikes and giving the evening programs, in the full uniform. And that demonstrated to me the power of education in getting people's behavior to change, whether it's protecting a park or keeping litter off the ground, et cetera. And wonderfully, I've been able to apply that over these 27 years and in all the different countries we work in. I mean, we're in 107 countries in all 50 states now. And kind of the flag I carry is, look, getting people to understand their water in all the different ways that we use it is really a critical part of this spectrum of solutions, whether we're talking about climate change or hand washing with COVID, developing and developed world, or literally the entire litany of issues around water. Education is an important part of every one of those solutions.
John, could you make the case, I think I know the answer to this, that is the most important part of it in terms of educating people on, where water comes from, the value of water, so you can in turn change public policy and drive technology adoption, things like that. It seems like we always, in particular in the digital world, we really bump into that.
Well, I mean, yeah, obviously the answer is yes from me, and I've tried thousands of times in forums and otherwise to make that case. Not always with pure uptake, needless to say, but we're doing our best. And, I think this IT piece is a really interesting component of this, Will. I mean, even just the phones we're carrying around, the computers we're talking to, I mean, the amount of water used within that, the production of those things, I mean, no one understands that, hardly. The production guys do. There's water everywhere.
You think, John, with what you're doing at Project Wet in over those 100 countries plus, obviously it's getting people to understand their own water sources and find out more, but also in terms of getting them interested in water as a career, getting them hooked at an early age. That's a kind of part of it as well.
Absolutely. So, with varying success, and I say that because a lot of these STEM jobs are going unfilled right now, whether it's water operators or technicians within big major corporations. There are so many unfilled STEM jobs that are connected to water. By the way, there are 136 careers connected to water, transport, drinking, treatment, et cetera. And, we're promoting every one of those, but there's a real need for career development, workforce development right now, especially with this silver tsunami of retiring adults that are doing those jobs right now.
I've heard that phrase before. Yeah, the silver tsunami, with the gap of what, and I saw this statistic the other day. Is it some utilities could lose up to 30% of their operational engineers within the next 15 years, which is crazy, right? So it's this, and obviously if you're not recruiting and bringing people to that workforce, there's going to be that gap to fill.
It's a big gap.
Just one point on recruiting into the utility sector and the digital transformation. People want to work for a digital company.
100%.
If you want to increase that pipeline of people that are digitally savvy and want to work for an entity that has enabled digital technology adoption, then that's the way to do it. It's not going to be the old crew, so to speak.
Digital and also sci-fi movies. I saw a great post the other day. Actually, this may sound a bit of a joke, but it's not. Should sci-fi movies be shown to more school-age children to promote, one word, curiosity, right? And this is maybe a bit of a segue to you, Ricky, but like just a curiosity, not only in terms of space exploration, but just in terms of advanced technologies and societies, right? And actually, you think about the role of digital in water and progressing that's a part of it. But yeah, nice, that cheeky little segue over to you, Ricky. Do you think more sci-fi movies?
I think the interesting thing about science fiction movies is they get people thinking, and I find it hard to believe, coincidentally, some of the hardware that we see used in space exploration resembles hardware that you would see in the old Star Trek shows. And I don't think that's coincidental, because I think the people who were influenced by those shows had a hand in designing and building hardware and asking themselves as they're watching that show, is this something that's possible? Is this something that can actually be done?
So another segue, so the remake of Dune came out.
Denis Villeneuve, right? Is it Denis Villeneuve, the director? Yeah.
Yeah. So, perfect. It might sharpen the mind in terms of the value of water. You guys are laughing, but
I was waiting for further explanation as to where you're going, but that's okay.
No, it's like,
it's definitely linked to sci-fi. It's talking about a future civilization and planet, and it's a remake of the original.
Right.
Yeah. Actually, a friend of mine who is a big science fiction fan asked if there was a book on, water. And, I recommended The Water Knife. I don't know if you have ever heard of that.
No.
Oh God. You're going to just drop me off of this podcast, right?
No, please. What is The Water Knife? I've not heard of it.
Yeah, it's a future where water is scarce and, considered valuable.
Cool.
So there we go.
We'll check it out and put the link in the commentary section of YouTube. Yeah. One to check out. Cool.
And Dune. And Dune
as well. Yeah, exactly. So Ricky, you've talked about that space age tech, and you've been on, from my research, you've been on the ISS twice. Is that right? Once was in 2009 and once was in 2018. You're probably going to correct me and say it's more, but okay, so twice.
No, you're correct.
You've got to tell us about that. You've done 5 spacewalks. Hopefully that's correct as well.
That is also correct.
There we go. We're on to a winner. Talk us through the whole living in space. That's a fascinating area. We wrote about it recently in terms of water recycling, because aboard the ISS, you have no choice but to recycle water, right? It's not as if you're going to keep shipping water up there for the astronauts. So just tell us about your experience and kind of the journey there. And
yeah, so that's a pretty big topic. My most recent mission was 197 days. So to condense that is a challenge. But my first mission was actually an assembly mission to the International Space Station. We flew up in a space shuttle. We stayed for a few days. We made some modifications, installed some solar arrays, and 13 days later, we were landing on a runway back in Florida. My second trip was on a Russian Soyuz capsule, where I was actually going to live and work and conduct the rigorous science program that happens on the International Space Station. And I was up there for essentially a baseball season, launched during spring training, came home just in time to watch the postseason.
Amazing. So many questions. It's a working trip, isn't it? When I was looking at documentaries from Tim Peake, it's not like you're going up there for holidays. It's a full-on testing, changing, operation and maintenance. It's pretty full on, right?
Tom, that could have been the understatement of the stream ever. It's a working trip. Yes, pretty much.
I saw. It's like people say, "Oh, it's life changing. You get to do your spacewalks." No, it's like ridiculously hard graft, and then you've got the muscle entropy that you have to keep working to stop happening. All that stuff as well, right?
Yeah, they're long days. It's exciting work, but they're 12-hour days, and you never leave your office. There's parts of it that are just absolutely magical, and parts where you could be. Just stop whatever you were doing, fold your arms, float a little bit, and drift off and fall to sleep rather quickly, just because of the amount of energy it requires to constantly be on. Right. I slept really well when I got back to Earth, because I was just exhausted, elated but exhausted.
Amazing. So your first stint was 197 days, right?
Now, my first trip was like 12 and a half days, 13 days, and my second trip was 197.
And obviously, I mentioned that because you have to strap yourself down to the treadmills to keep.
That's correct.
Because otherwise, if you're floating, you're not using your muscles, and after that amount of time, they start shrinking.
It's a lot easier. It's a lot easier to lift weights and to run if without gravity. So all of our exercise equipment, we have an exercise bicycle, a treadmill, and then a resistive exercise device which simulates weightlifting, all designed for work in microgravity. And we work out about 2 hours a day, every day, just about that we're there.
Amazing. Yeah, we did a podcast interview with Naoko Yamazaki.
She was one of my classmates. Yeah,
for the time at Brave Blue. Well, she's the second Japanese female astronaut in space, right? Amazing lady, and she's talking about how it was kind of life-changing and everything. But yeah, it's she spoke similarly about the kind of the training per day to kind of keep fit and active and strong, which is interesting. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. There's so many questions. And where'd you go from that? I mean, when you're up in space, right? What I'm trying to say is like everyone has a career, and you get to like a pinnacle, right? And when you get up on the ISS, I mean, do you not you want to go back? Surely, because
I can't pass this up. So where you go after being an astronaut is you're on the stream. Come on, Tom. It's like a total layup.
ISS twice, the stream, it's all part of those kind of milestones, right?
I'm sure it'll be the top of his resume from this point.
Just moved right to the top.
Yeah. I remember the first trip coming home, and you really, when you landed on the space shuttle in Florida, it was a bit of a hero's welcome. You get flown back to Houston. They have a hangar full of people waiting to greet you. You pull up in your driveway, and 48 hours later, I was sitting in the parking lot of a Target and thinking to myself, did that really happen? Because there's just no frame of reference. Frame of reference to the experience, unless I'm around other people who've had that experience. Right. So, it's interesting, but it's also, I mean, it was for me, it was a huge gift to be able to do that. And as an educator, and John alluded to that earlier, I mean, we're passionate about water, and we're educators at heart. Mm-hmm. And so to be able to come back and use that experience to inspire other people to think about possibilities within the STEM field, and really with and wherever their passions lie, to not sell themselves short and try to achieve that dream. Even if you don't get to where you think you want to be, if you're working hard and doing something you're really passionate about, you'll get to where you should be.
What do you both think the world needs with respect to increasing STEM education? So in terms of, is it an investment, more educators, is it just engaging with the layperson that these topics are really not optional anymore? They're, ever more critical in the world of climate change and water challenges and, collapsing ecosystems and everything else we're seeing.
Oh, good. I took the first question. Ricky gets to answer this one first, and then I'll correct.
I'm happy. Go ahead, John. If you want, I'm happy.
No, you're on.
You guys can just sit here and argue if you want.
Yeah.
To.
No, please, after you. Please, after you. We've shown we're capable of meeting these challenges. When during the Sputnik era, when the United States felt it was falling behind in science and technology, there was a huge investment in education, with a lot that didn't come with a lot of the overhead required. It provided teachers with the professional development, the tools, equipment that they needed to do what they know how to do, and that is to excite kids about STEM and to learn those hands-on skills that make science, technology, engineering, mathematics so exciting. We have even bigger challenges now, but we also have a layer of overhead for your classroom teacher that makes it difficult to make science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, a tangible, exciting thing to engage in, because you have all these benchmarks, you have testing, you have all these, really, they become hindrances in some ways to allowing professionals to do what they know how to do and inspire kids and get them motivated to move on into the fields that they want to engage in. That's, I think, one piece of it is those authentic STEM experiences that make science so cool and engaging. It's challenging, I think, in today's educational environment to provide that in a classroom.
Well, especially, they're sort of getting hamstrung at every turn, these teachers. Right. Field trips are cut. Budgets are cut for extra materials. They're doing bake sales and fundraisers to get, STEM equipment in the room, as it were. And, there's still a challenge of sort of the cultural limitations that for some reason with girls especially, and it's changed a lot, but there are still challenges with science studies dropping off middle school and beyond for young women. And it's not because they're not smarter. They actually, in many cases, have been proven to be even smarter than young men. But for some reason, there is a cultural limit to them going into those fields.
That's interesting. I read that, I want to say pre-World War II, there was, almost more of a gender balance in terms of a lot of women in science and engineering. And if you look at a lot of the code breakers, both in England and in the US, there were women that did this. They led those initiatives. And then, World War II and post, I think we got into that, rut, if you will, in terms of really not offering women opportunities to really participate in engineering and science. So maybe this is a question for both of you, but is there an opportunity to bring the corporate world to fund the gap that you're seeing in terms of cutting back on, content and field trips and making STEM, come to life? I don't know how much of a challenge that is, but it just struck me that, boy, it would benefit society and certainly the private sector in a huge way if there was, greater investment, and maybe that's an opportunity for them.
Yeah, and I also wonder about the workforce, right? How are we developing a workforce? What skills are those folks looking for, and how does that get articulated down to the people who build curriculum?
Right.
Well, I think it's making sure that the politicians setting the curriculum are kind of in touch with not only the challenges of the workforce today, but of the future as well, right?
Yeah.
I think but it also goes beyond, obviously learning and getting enthused by STEM-related subjects in school is the big focus, but also outside of the school, right? In terms of making sure parents have that drive to make sure their children have those tools and those experiences as well, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that the environmental education piece is the opportunity to kind of immerse yourself in that environment. Maryland's unique in that I think they were the first state to actually have environmental education standards built into the curriculum. Those outdoor things that get kids excited about, hey, this is why I need to study chemistry, so I understand how this works, or this is why I want to study biology. John, I was going to get chemistry into there somehow, but I'll leave it at that.
Oh, I knew it was coming. Don't worry.
I also remember my trips to Singapore, where they've got a kind of visitor center on one of the water reclamation plants, the new water, and it's done as a kind of interactive museum and part of the curriculum. But there's a lot of school children go and visit, and they're taken through. And in terms of the technicalities of a membrane filtering water, it's really broken down in terms of the contaminants the size of a bus that can't get through these membranes, and then the water modules the size of a football that can. But just in terms of telling them where their water comes from and that new water recycling process, it's a real visual, like interactive, cool way. I was impressed when I visited as a kind of 30-year-old male, let alone as an 8-year-old school kid, right? But I think that was kind of built into the educational piece of the public sector company there, which would be great to see elsewhere.
So, Tom, I'm glad you brought that pub system up, because Singapore is all in, right? They went sort of from the top person in government, leadership, all the way down. They implement, it's the sole water source for the city-state of Singapore. But that education component, and I've had many conversations with those leaders over there, the education leaders, who are partners of ours. They had years of sort of pre-planning for this, right? I think this water reuse, water reclamation is a huge success story, and hopefully will be a part of our success in the United States. Many states are using it now, but that sort of getting the citizens over the hump of thinking about drinking that water right from a treatment plant it's only science. It's easy to understand on the science side, but unfortunately there's kind of a different reaction.
I still get that reaction talking about water reuse on the International Space Station, where our drinking water comes from. We're almost closed loop up there, not entirely, but we're pretty close.
Well, if you're Singapore, you can have a national water strategy that includes education and driving things like reuse and recycling and efficiency. And in the US, it's pretty clear we don't have a national water strategy. We have, a crazy quilt of regulations and state initiatives. And while there are bright spots in terms of, states that are now feeling the pinch on, aridification, scarcity to drought, for the most part, it's really kind of do what you please. So I think it's a huge challenge, but a huge opportunity clearly to, how do you get the layperson to understand the importance of, water and related issues and, rally to change policy and technology.
So Tom made our case basically, because when you said as a 30-year-old, you saw this interactive demonstration of this RO filter, so that interactivity, that hands-on education is exactly why Project Wet is still around after 37 years. So that is the core of what we do. Not anyone, a lot of people can lecture on water, tons of experts, but getting those concepts into a digestible, understandable, hands-on lesson is really our magic. And that's why we're still around. That's why we're good.
So you guys are sort of producing the creative assets to essentially translate a very technical engineering related topic and process right down to it's understandable to a range of different ages, right?
That's exactly right. Yep, that's exactly right. And that's why people come to us, including, as Will knows, some of these multinational corporations to get these big concepts of corporate sustainability, for example, to their own employees as that first line of stakeholders. So they want their own employees to be able to tell their own story, and lectures and maybe, those types of trainings aren't the perfect mechanism. And those are the companies that we're working with.
Amazing. Just one more question, because I think we're almost at the 30-minute mark, is I'd love to get your guys' opinions on space tourism.
I'll save you some time.
I thought I'd save that one to the very end.
Ask Ricky.
No, hang on. Let me link it to the previous conversation, because we've talked about experiences that... Right, wait for it. In terms of giving you a perception on Earth and the fragility of the planet and how climate change is mucking up, right? If you can get people into space to get the experience that you did, Ricky, on a lesser model, could it then change and motivate people to go into that field of work? I think I got the link there but
oh man, that was pretty thin though, Tom. Really, I mean, well done, of course, but thin.
Space tourism, go.
Well, I think there's a term with the overview effect, right? Seeing Earth from low Earth orbit, even the astronauts on the way to the moon experiences. It kind of changes your perception of our place in the cosmos. And one of the big challenges we have trying to address these global challenges is we as human beings are really, really poor at connectivity, right? We get the concept that if something's happening in a room that you're in, that it could impact you. We can kind of get it at the neighborhood level, but when it comes to a global level, it is really hard for us to process that and to do anything with it. But when you getting people up to low Earth orbit, you realize how really small and insignificant this planet is, how it's dominated by water, and how ridiculously thin the Earth's atmosphere is relative to the diameter of the Earth. I've heard folks say there's no way the atmosphere is limitless. There's no way we can change the Earth's atmosphere. And you see this ribbon that separates. It's really the dividing line between sustainable life and no life whatsoever. And you see how thin it is. There's absolutely no way we are pumping things into it consequence free. So my hope is that these folks who are going to go up and have these wonderful experiences are going to come back and take that and use it to change the conversation in their community about connectivity, how really the decisions we make as consumers, the decisions we make as voters, the decisions we make as policyholders impacts people that we haven't met and will never meet, but we could dramatically change the outcome for them and their community.
Well said. Well said. I mean, you think about the lucky few to start with that's such a high price tag. You would like to think that they would, after the experience, come back and influence for the good, right? In terms of the experience and passing that on. But yeah, time will tell. But yeah, John and Will, any final comments from you before we wrap up?
I guess my only comment is that what I've learned, through knowing both of you and working with John in particular is, you really can't overstate the importance of education. You just really can't. I mean, nothing is going to change unless people really do have a fundamental understanding of what are the issues that we face. And I love how you framed it, Ricky, that we live in this little thin ribbon on top of this planet. And we need to do more faster. So, I thank you to both of you, quite honestly. I mean, I think it's impressive and it's changed my view.
Well, I've had the pleasure of hearing Ricky speak to both adults and lots of teachers and students alike as an astronaut. I was
going to say,
different as
I've never heard you say the pleasure of hearing me speak.
Not in social settings, no.
Okay, perfect.
But,
okay.
When he's up on stage,
sounds like there's a few more stories there to be eked out. Yeah,
part 2.
but Ricky, has a way of capturing the essence of, because he's a teacher, he's a certified teacher right now today. So the fact that he can bridge this gap between obviously what we're talking about that is unknowable to the rest of us in space down to where we are right now and what the impacts of our actions today are. It's really impressive to see. And I actually am going to put Ricky up as a consultant for Guardians of the Galaxy 3. This gets back to your science fiction. I think there should be a water story underneath this, the next Guardians of the Galaxy, to try to get the education point out there.
I look forward to the invitation.
We could run with that one clearly, but I'll refrain.
100%. Let's make water mainstream, right? As part of the Marvel universe. That sounds good to me. Well, gents, listen, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks for your time, John, on the education side and the importance of, this silver tsunami. We hear it coming more and more. So it's a gap that we have to fill and a problem we have to overcome. And also, Ricky, for your time on the ISS and stories from as a NASA astronaut, and also your continued teaching. So yeah, thanks for being part of the stream. We've loved having you, and let's have you back on in a future season.
That'd be wonderful. Thanks for having us.
Thanks to you both. Very enjoyable.
Bye, guys. Love the shirts.
Take care.
Cheers, guys. Thanks.
Off to the luau.